Today I've got a Pioneer X CM30 micro component system. This is a CD player, USB player, iPod dock, FM, AM radio, all in a little tiny cube. Perfect for kitchens and small dorms and stuff. Anyway, the CD player is not working, the USB port is broken, and the guy that owns it would like it fixed. So let's check it out. Today I have this Pioneer mini system. This has got a CD player, USB, looks like it'll take a USB stick in here. It says USB play pack. Wonder what that is. But it's got a port on the front here. It's got a CD player. Even has an old-fashioned iPod, iPhone dock for one of the old phones. Complaint on this is the CD player does not work, and they'd like it repaired if possible. So let's turn it on and see if it does anything. Doesn't even appear to turn on. As you can see, when I press the power button here, nothing happens. But if I press the power button on the remote control, the unit turns on. So there's more than one problem on this unit. Complaint is the CD doesn't open properly. But yeah, it could be a belt slipping on this one. The power button's not working, that's for sure. Function button works. Tuner, USB, iPod, audio in, and disc. Oh, look. The standby button is changing the modes. Now it's working. I wonder if one of the other buttons had a bit of... Well, it's going through the modes though. See, the function button is supposed to change the mode. The power switch is supposed to turn it on and off. There might be some corrosion or something on the on this board here. Now it's working, so might be just some corrosion on the switch or on the board. But complaint is that it doesn't play a CD, doesn't read a CD, doesn't appear to work properly. So let's hook up some speakers. We'll put a CD in it and see if it'll play it. And it does look to me like the USB port is pushed in. So maybe we'll take it apart before something shorts out on there, because it looks like the USB port, the circuit board is just lying inside there. This should be something you could plug a USB stick into, and it's not there. So let's pull the top off it before we do anything. This thing's got actually more screws in it than most big systems do. It's got 5 screws in the back, and it looks like 3 screws on each side. To the person that made the comment on the last one of these microsystems that I serviced, asking who would be still using something like this, and I replied to them that there's lots of people that still use these systems, and they couldn't understand why someone would use something like this. Well, people still have CDs that they like to play. And not everybody wants a big system. And a portable ghetto blaster doesn't typically give you the type of sound quality that one of these mini systems did with half-decent speakers. Top should come off just like that. And I got to unplug this iPod docking unit here. There we go. And there should be probably a ground wire on here as well. There is. So I'll just take that off, take that screw out for the ground wire so that I can remove the top. Let's take a look at this thing. So we've got our tuner board and processing board here. I think all the audio processing is done on here. The next board down is the power supply and amplifier. You can see the heat sink over here for the power amplifier. CD player is below that, and underneath this chassis is the USB port that is broken. So to get at that, I'm going to have to actually remove the front, because I do want to repair that part. So I'm going to remove the front of the unit, take all the screws out here, and we'll pull the front off it so that I can actually get that piece back in place. I guess I'm going to have to cut a few of these wire ties, commonly called zap straps, just to get a bit of clearance on here so that I can remove the front. I really only need to get to the, is what I mean, this piece has come out. So I gotta put this back in place. Wonder what was holding it before. Did it just clip in? Maybe it just clips in. I think it might just clip in place. Maybe a couple screws that hold it in. Let's investigate. Yeah, it looks like the little circuit board here is held in place by a couple screws that come out and hold the board in by the edge here. So I gotta remove those screws. Oh, one of them looks like it. Oh, one's broken. That's why this thing, the USB port fell out, was because the plastic is broken on one of the two screws. So I wonder if I can glue that back in place. We'll put this. I'm going to put the USB port into its location, and then maybe we'll put some cement or something on it to hold it in place. This is what's called black plastic crap syndrome. This plastic is so brittle. Notice that the piece under my thumb there is cracked and broken. Because this is how this was held in place. Was this was fit in here. It fits into a slot, and then the screw holds the circuit board. And more pieces are going to break while I'm working on this into the slot. But you can see the bottom one is broken. With my flashlight. It's just crap. Yeah, that's where this goes. This fits in. There's a little slot here. Oh, it's broken on both sides. It's like somebody jammed something in there and broke all the plastic. Like the groove that the circuit board goes into is actually broken too. You can see the pieces that are coming out of it. So I'm going to have to glue this in with some JB Weld. That's the only way that this little port is going to go back in, is I'm going to have to glue it in place. So I'm going to mix up some JB Weld, and we'll put that back in place like that, so that at least this thing will work. There, that's where it goes. I can probably put this top screw in to hold it, and then I'm going to get some glue in there, and we'll JB Weld that in place. It's the only way it's going to stay. Okay, let's get some JB Weld. We'll get that in there first. Get that part of the problem taken care of. It's funny, you know, I usually have my TV on beside me here, and I've got Forensic Files or something on, one of the shows I like to kind of watch while I'm working. But I obviously got to keep the sound turned down for copyright reasons. So I got a TV that when I put it in mute, it puts on the closed captions so I can read what's going on the show. But the way that the closed captions on these old TVs were configured, they only work from the RF input. So even though I've got my cable box sitting here that I can watch programming on, I actually have to take the output of the cable box, run it into an RF modulator, because for whatever the wisdom with it is that the closed captions don't work through the HDMI input. They only work through the RF input. Kind of silly. Now of course I could go into my cable box and I could turn the closed captions on in it. There's a menu for that too, but I don't necessarily want them on all the time. I just want them on when I've got the sound muted. So I just take the RF output from it and run that in. It's only standard definition, but this TV isn't HD anyway. It's a plasma, but it's a standard definition plasma. So I just go in on the RF input. And then when I'm not recording, I can have the sound on, but whenever I'm going to record, I have to hit the mute button. So while I'm muted, I can read what's going on the show. Okay, this is mixed pretty good. We'll get in here and we'll smear this all around on the USB port and around that screw to hold it in place, and basically just build this up in here so that it's not going to move. And this stuff is pretty good stuff. Once it's set up, this will never ever break free again. So I'm going to let this stuff set up for a while here. While I let it set up, I'll take a bit of a break here while I let this all set up in place. Okay, the JB weld is set up, so that won't come loose again. It's going to make sure that the spring down here is not glued down, because that is what grounds it to the chassis when it's put back together. We can turn the unit up on the side, and I'm going to see whether the CD player is going to do anything. It may need a new belt, and this might be a fun one to try and change, just from the way this thing is laid out. Although I might be able to remove this bottom piece with the CD player in it. A couple screws in the bottom may come off with the CD player in it, so that I can actually check out the belt. CD player is screwed down, 4 screws that hold it down to the base. But if I remove the 2 screws here and the 2 screws on the other side, I may be able to release this entire base so we can check out the CD player. Okay, with those screws removed, the actual CD player itself is now free. That's the USB lead that I just re-secured, so we'll just undo that. There's some other plugs that can come out here too. In here. And it looks like these 2 plugs go down to the CD player. I don't necessarily want to undo them. I just need some slack, just so I can get at the CD player. I want to lubricate the mechanism here, clean the lens, and possibly replace this little belt, which I can get at right there. That's the loading belt. So I can get to that belt without having to take this thing apart any more than it is. I'm going to lubricate the slide rail here, and we'll dust off the lens while I'm at it and change out this little belt. And of course, remove all the little pieces of plastic that are breaking off this mechanism, off this unit here, because this plastic has become so brittle that just breathing on it is causing it to actually fracture. This is this crappy black plastic crap, but that's what this stuff is. This plastic black crap breaks just by looking at it. It's like the backs that Panasonic used on their TVs in the mid-90s. I don't know if it was recycled plastic or what, but it was the worst stuff, the Gao TVs that Panasonic had. You take the back off the TV and just have the back sitting there, and the back tips over and just flops over on its back because of the weight of the back sitting on the ground wasn't very well balanced, and it would have a tendency to tip over. Just the weight of the back basically tipping over, it would shatter into a million pieces. It would just literally explode. Those backs were so flimsy, sometimes just taking them off the back of the TV, you'd break them. Or putting them back together, you'd break them. It was terrible. It was just a really bad era for this black plastic crap. I have another belt here that's slightly smaller than the original one. So we're going to put this one on. And then I'm going to grease the gear and the rail here. And we'll put this thing back together and see whether it works. Now I'm thinking that maybe this USB wasn't forced to break it. Just the plastic itself got so weak that just the friction from inserting a USB stick caused it to break. It's making me kind of nervous with everything else that's plastic on this thing, because it really is the stuff really is brittle. Get that out like that. Okay, here we go. Now I'll just pull this over the belt, over the pulley. There, that's a nice and tight belt now. Hopefully it's gonna be not too tight. Okay, we'll get some molybdenum grease. Or even a drop of oil would probably do the job on this. It's pretty dry. We'll put a bit of grease on there and try that. See whether that's all that's wrong with it. Thing with this grease is that you don't need to put a lot on. It will work its way around the gears as the mechanism moves back and forth. It will work its way around and get onto all the gear teeth surfaces. The same with down here on the rail. Just put a little bit on there and it will work its way in on both sides. See what I mean about this crappy plastic? It's shattering. And there's no stress put on this. This is just the way it is. It just falls apart. It's terrible. And believe me, I'm not putting any tension on this. I'm not even letting the screwdriver all the way cinch the screws up. I'm stopping it. I will tighten these by hand once I get to that point. But this stuff is really brittle. This plastic. It's really brittle. I'm going to hook this up to some speakers and see whether it does anything first before I go any further onto assembling this unit. I'll load a CD and see whether this thing's going to do anything. It's spinning. Table of contents read. It says there's 18 tracks on here, which there is. How do I play it? Playing. Well, that part works. Let's grab a USB stick with some music and see how it plays that. And I just so happen to have a USB stick with royalty-free music that I can play. Before I do that, I'll just check and make sure it can play more than one track. Okay, how do I work this thing? Everything's done with the remote control, and that's probably skip, yes. So we'll make sure it can play all the tracks. We'll go to like track 12 or 11. There's 11. $12, 13. Should be 18 tracks on that. It's 15, 16. For those of you that are interested in the music that's on this disc, these are all Music Bakery tracks. I'll let it play from the beginning so you guys can hear a sample, because I get asked by everybody, what's the name of the song you played at this particular point in time? So here they are. I'm going to play a sampler from each one so you guys can see what they are. Here's the track title. This one's called Action Thriller. Track 2, After Hours. Track 3, Arena Rock. Track 4 is Bad Boys. Track 5 is Bikini Beach. Track 6. This is called Bittersweet. Next up is Breathless. Followed by Cheerful Underscore. This one's called Cityscape. I've heard this one used as music on hold in the past from various companies too. Corporate Image follows at track number 10. Daybreak at number 11. Track number 12, this one's called Dream State. Track number 13, Easy Does It. Track 14 is Effortless Mastery. Track 15 is Encouraging News. Track 16, The Star Walk. Track 17, Super Smooth. And track 18, Tasty Jazz. That's this CD for those that are interested in what the track titles are, so I don't have to keep going back and looking it up. Okay, let's eject this disc. I'm going to put the USB stick in. I'm going to switch this thing over to USB. There's USB, and if I put in the USB stick, it should play. Press play. There we go. See, if this was my unit and I was using this in my kitchen or something, I probably wouldn't bother with the CD. I'd just put music on the USB stick and play it off that, because it's so much more convenient just to play it off of a USB stick. But it has the capability of both a CD player. I'm curious as to whether this CD player can read an MP3 disc, so let's try that. We'll just stop this from playing. Remove the USB stick. I'm going to go back to disc, and I'm going to just try loading an MP3 disc and see whether this is compatible with MP3 recorded CDs. It was titled Music in MP3, and this was from my old car. My really old car, because this is from 2009, so this would have been from my my Escape before I got my Volt. Oh, wait a minute, TOC read. Oh, looks like it might read it. It's showing something. It's showing some numbers on it. Let's press the playback. Ah! Looks like it's going to read an MP3 encoded disc. It does. Cool. Can't let this one play, obviously, because I'll get nailed pretty quick. But yeah, it does read audio. It does read MP3 CDs. I like it even more now because you know, if you've got a CD, you can put 105 or 110 tracks on a CD and play it back off of a player like this. Play mode, normal, repeat one, repeat folder, and repeat all. I'm just wondering if it's got a random mode on it or not. I don't see a random mode on this thing. You would think that it would, but play mode just says repeat one, repeat all. Anyway, it's reading a CD recorded in MP3 format. And a CD that's, well, it's not in great shape. It's got a few scratches on it, but this is, you know, this is a CDR that's, you know, this is over 10 years old. This was recorded 10 years, and it was carried around in my car for, you know, for a long time. So this CD has held up. Some CDs don't, some do, and this one is one that has, this one's lasted. Verbatim were typically pretty good discs, but I've had much better luck with the darker discs like these Fuji that are a dark blue or green color. I've had much better luck with nice scratches. Looks like this one crashed in the player, doesn't it? Nice circular scratch there. Looks like it hit a lens or something on the player at one point. Anyway, this thing appears to be fixed, so it's time to put it together. Maybe I'll even drag out my old iPod. Yes, I have an iPod. The only Apple device that I own is an iPod 3, an iPod Touch, which was the first one with the touchscreen. And that's the only piece of iPod garbage that I own. I'm almost ashamed to say that I own it, but it is compatible with the connector that's on this one, so maybe we'll try that out once I get the top back on it. Let's check out the iPod dock. Here goes nothing. Talk about an archaic piece of equipment. This is a very old iPod. Let's see if it'll actually do anything. It says dock OK. I wonder if I can play music off of this thing. Let's see here. How do I play this thing? I forget how. This thing's so old. I forget how to play it. Did I tap that? It does work. I got like 2,181 songs on this thing. It's only a 32 gig. It's not full, you know, but I did put a few tracks on here. I used to use this thing more than just for, well, control. Yeah, it'll work from the remote too. I forgot all the stuff that's on here. I actually have a Sony system in my kitchen, which has got the iPod dock for this, and that's all I ever use it for. And basically all I ever used this thing for was I used to stop that from playing. I used to use this for internet radio, although I don't think too many of them probably work anymore. I might be lucky if TuneIn radio works. And I used to use this to listen to the different stations that I couldn't get over the air. And that's what I use this thing for. So, unknown stream, I don't know what stations are still operating on here. If any. Not supported, not supported. How about this one here? 88.5. This one should work. Because I used to listen to this one all the time. Yeah, there we go. That's what I used to use this thing for. This is the great public radio jazz stations. That's what I use this iPod for, and it still works. But not all the apps work because jazz radio doesn't work anymore, and I've just tried it. Most of the radio apps no longer work because the OS on here is too old. I can't update to the current version. And they don't support, I guess the encryption has changed on a lot of the stations, and they no longer support the older devices. So it's just Apple's way of obsoleting you and making you upgrade. And that's one of the reasons I would never own another piece of Apple equipment as long as I live, is because of the way that they just, okay, yep, your unit's too old. You know, the unit's perfectly fine. The battery still holds a full charge and everything on this unit, and their attitude is, nope, time to buy a new one. Give us more of your money. Pissed me off with Apple when they changed the connector on the newer devices. And then all the accessories that you bought for the existing devices, of course, no longer work. But anyway, this unit is fixed, as you can see. Everything's working. The iPod dock's working, the CD player's working, and the USB input's working on it. And of course, the radio, I already tried that, so the radio is working as well. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one again real soon. Bye for now.